welcome into the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater alongside Richard Day the Cruz.
Hello.
And Chief Engineer, Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Hello.
Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse. Just put up a video about the 2002 video game The Thing, which is a sequel to the movie The Thing, which was made in 1980 or released in 1982, I think. Also put a video up. We reached 10,000 subscribers.
Yay.
So did a quick
Thank you.
vlog-ish type thing that I threw together in the morning on Friday. So go check that out. And currently working on some other stuff right now. We've got news, we've got games. So why don't we start with
news?
Yeah.
Okay. Start with me then, because you guys haven't played anything.
Pretty much.
I mean, I've just been playing Tales of Arise, I have nothing new to comment on.
Okay.
It, so.
Well, so I am working on a video about Everslaught right now. Everslaught is a
pinball machine.
No. Everslaught is a
gotcha game.
I'm not even sure what to call it. It has the structure of like a roguelike.
Okay.
But it's really easy, and I've only died once in about 6 hours. So it's a VR game. It's a hack and slash. You go into a dungeon, and there's procedurally generated rooms, and you have a sword, and you have a sword in one hand, and in the other hand you have a hand cannon and a grappling hook. And so you fire the grappling hook at these grappling hook like shot places, and it takes you over to these things. You can shoot them at enemies, and it'll zoom you to the enemy and sort of stun the enemy. It's a very high intensity VR game because you're shooting things and then you zoom from one end of a room to another. You're mobbed by enemies constantly. As the game is structured, as you go through this procedurally generated dungeon, and at the end there is a arena room where a bunch of dudes spawn and attack you. So you're constantly running different directions, firing the grappling hook, turning around, killing a bunch of dudes that are coming out. The main enemies you fight are like zombie things. There are some zombie archers that run around and shoot arrows at you. There are bigger dudes like Drugar in Skyrim. There are bigger dudes with like axes that walk slowly and they swing real slowly. So there's a couple different types of enemies. It just released in early access, I think, in June, and it's pretty bare bones. And there's not a lot to it, and I'm not a huge fan thus far, because there's not really a challenge to it. Like I said, I've only died once, and it has the structure of a roguelike. So you go through this dungeon, and the point you kill enemies, you get blood capsules, right? An interesting dynamic about the game is to heal yourself, you have to use blood capsules. To heal yourself and to fire your hand cannon, you use blood capsules. You get blood capsules from killing enemies with melee, right? So if you go through and shoot enemies, you only get like 6 shots and you're out, and you also can't heal yourself. So you have to kill enemies with your sword or with your fists to get blood capsules back. But throughout your entire run, you collect blood, and at the end, you give the blood to a mysterious blood god that's having you like go through the dungeon. Yes, you give blood to the blood god. That's having you go through the dungeon, consistently killing people. It says you're a cleric, but I'm not really clear. There's a lot of story stuff that isn't really explained, which on one hand is cool, on the other hand, it's kind of confusing. But so I've like I said, I've played about 6-7 hours, and I've enjoyed some of it, but it's one of those. It's a game that is a good idea, but it needs to be fleshed out in a lot of different ways. Every single blood run, or every single time you go into it, it's the same exact thing. You have 20 minutes, 15 minutes of corridors fighting enemies throughout, and then you get to an arena room. There's only like 5 different arena rooms, so you know it when you get into it because you've been there before once you've played the game a couple times.
Yeah.
The arena rooms always work the same way. It's just a ton of enemies, and you're fighting them all off. And then once you've killed them all, you go into the next room. There's a chest. You may find a new weapon, and then you go to your sort of the starting area where you can store weapons, you can improve, you can level up a weapon. As you turn in your blood, you get character points, and you can spend these points in a couple different categories to upgrade all sorts of things about your character, like movement speed and melee damage and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you can upgrade your sword with you, because you'll find a sword at like level 6. You complete the blood run, you go to level 7, and you can pay gold, which you'll find in like pots and stuff that you destroy throughout the dungeons. You can pay gold to upgrade it so that it goes to level 7 with you, right? So like a lot of the structure for roguelike is there, but they're 7 hours in and there really isn't a boss fight. Now, the weird thing is I just encountered a new enemy today, and that was after like 7 hours, and I thought for sure I had seen everything. So that was kind of weird. It felt like it was out of nowhere. And the new enemy was interesting, but anyway, so there hasn't really been a boss fight. There hasn't really been anything that's changed up the pace or the pace or the intrigue about it at all. The grappling hook is a cool idea, but it's like 2 uses to get away from people and to send you at dudes. You kind of wish there was something else going on, or at least the grappling hook was used for more complex things. I think the game, you also have like a dash ability. You can jump. If you stand still and you press one of the triggers, your character just jumps. But if you press backwards, left, or right, your character sort of dashes real quick, right? So it's an easy dodge. But there's enough there that you could do like some neat platforming puzzles.
Okay.
But there aren't any platforming puzzles. So there's nothing. Every dungeon is like the same length, arena room. So, and it's not, there's no flavor text. Like you don't find some piece of paper that's like, oh, back in the olden times, these dungeons, like nothing that's there just to give the world any kind of color. It's very much like, I don't know who I am. I don't know where I am. I know I must kill. Whatever.
Yeah. I mean,
so now again, it's super early access. So hopefully a lot of this gets fixed as it goes on. But there are some interesting things about the game. Like I said, it's very intense. So movement is intense. You have tons of stuff coming at you, moving on screen. Your attacks, and this is interesting, are partially, the damage you do with an attack is partially determined by the not range of movement, force of movement, right? So in a lot of VR games, Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, if you swing a bat at a zombie, you don't have to swing it fast.
Right.
You have to complete a motion, right? So as long as you do like 45 degrees of swinging, you'll kill the zombie.
Yeah.
You don't have to swing very hard. So it's called a range of motion. In Everslaught, range of motion won't do a lot of damage, so it wants you to swing. You don't have to swing super fast, but you do have to swing faster than like range of motion in other games. So it's a game that is for people that can stomach a lot of VR movement and stuff, and that can stomach like lots of swinging and popping your shoulder and stuff like that.
Slot as in slaughter.
Yes, slot as in slaughter.
Gotcha.
Ever as in roguelike, as in Everspace, as in whatever else. So yeah, and that's the thing. Like I say, it's like a roguelike, but it's not, because roguelikes are all about, it has all the structure, but it's not difficult. It's like I've died once. And so there's not a lot of variability to it.
Is there a difficulty slider there you're missing?
I don't think so. I can check that again. I don't think there is. There may be in the game's options.
It sounds cool. It sounds also like they kind of started working on tons of different mechanics and like halfway through dropped them. Because it sounds like it has the kind of same type of gameplay style that it wants. It wants to have the same gameplay style as Doom 2016.
Yes, it is very
Doom Eternal, by like, regaining your strength when you kill an enemy a particular way. And then of course you have like those platforming elements, but it sounds like along with the platforming and the swinging, it seems like it wants to be somewhat of a like kind of Devil May Cry hack and slash, like do crazy maneuvers.
There's a lot of that. Yeah.
Or at least there's a want for people to play that way. But yeah, with the kind of emptiness. So not even the areas are procedurally generated?
The areas are procedurally generated,
Okay.
but it gets really repetitive because you see everything fairly quickly. At least everything that I've seen in 7 hours has been repeated a lot. And like I said, I was really surprised when I saw a new enemy today. And I had leveled up to level 10, so maybe something that doesn't appear until you're level 10 or whatever. Now, the other thing is if new enemies start appearing as you get into higher levels, it's going to take forever because getting to level 9 takes less blood than like level 11. So when you're sacrificing blood to the blood god, it takes more to get to higher levels, which means more grinding, right? So yeah, it's a lot of cool ideas, but it needs polishing and it needs different pace, and it's also like because the pacing is so not even sure how to put it. It's just always the same thing. It's always the same speed.
Yeah.
So it gets to the point where even the pace is repetitive. And that's not fun either. So that can be tough to get through. But I was going to mention something else. All of the dungeons are pretty much one color. There's one procedurally generated area where you go through a dungeon and you peer out on like the second story of a building or something. And then you can run through a little city area and then you're right back into a dungeon. The opening of the game is really cool because you walk up to the city. So it's like you go through a canyon up to the city through doors and you make your way to wherever this dungeon is. But once you're in there, it starts to loop and and then that's what you're doing. The other thing that really bothers me. So the grappling hook will you shoot enemies, it grabs them, and you fly toward an enemy, right? Which is really cool and really handy, especially against archers, because archers like move around and jump. They'll shoot at you and run away, right? So if you see one, you can shoot at it and it'll stun, and you can fly at it and get a couple hits in before it tries to get away, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you time it correctly, which is really cool in VR, you can shoot your grappling hook, get an enemy, and as you're going toward the enemy, swing and as soon as you get there, kill it, which is really neat. But the issue with this is that enemies will clip through you. So you will like fly through the enemy and turn around and like, where the hell did the guy go? You know? And that's not fun at all. That's something that I really dislike, because when enemies start clipping through you, then it's like you're constantly turning around to figure out.
Wildly swing around.
Yeah. So it's like when it works and enemies bounce off you and go in front of you, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But when you like clip through them and stuff, it's really janky and uneven feeling. But anyway, that's basically all I've been playing. I'll be making a video about Everslaught. Other than that, yeah, that's pretty much it.
We want to give a massive shout out to the sponsors of this episode. They have been silently supporting us since the very beginning, and we felt it was time to give them some love. The like and share buttons have been at our side since episode 1 of the podcast. They can be found just beneath this episode. Please give them a click, it helps us greatly. If you're feeling lucky, click the bell icon to enter for a notification anytime we post new content. You may be surprised by what you get.
Guys, what's the deal with Titanfall?
Kill it.
During a live stream, Respawn's Jason Garza, who is, I think he's a community manager or the community manager at Respawn.
That tells you all you need to know.
Answered a fan question regarding the future of Titanfall, saying, quote, "I've said this before, we don't have anything in the works. There's nothing there. We've got too many other games in the works right now. You lose. You get nothing. Good day, sir." Later, Respawn's official Twitter account said something different. Quote, "Contrary to what some folks are reporting, Titanfall is the very core of our DNA. Who knows what the future holds," end quote. Now I looked this up because in 2019, Vince Zampella and Andrew Wilson both said that another Titanfall game was in the future in one way or the other. And that was like right after Titanfall, or right after Apex Legends launched. And we haven't seen that, unless there was some weird Titanfall mobile game that released that I hadn't heard of that they were supposedly talking about. But anyway, so lots of questions about Titanfall. This is something that I think is It's interesting because when Apex Legends came out, this was the first thing I thought about was, okay, so what's the future of Titanfall? And I think a lot of people, well, I mean, everyone had that same feeling. And those worries were addressed by Respawn and by Andrew Wilson saying, you know, that we've got more Titanfall in the future.
Yeah.
And then March happened and the coronavirus and everything got postponed. And so, you know, God knows what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think this is interesting because Titanfall is a series that the first game was insanely innovative and amazing.
Very good game.
The second one,
but still, sorry, real quick, still very like, I remember when Titanfall was coming out, and it's like, Titanfall, this is a cool new game. It's multiplayer only. Titanfall, the game is multiplayer only, and then they really focused on the multiplayer thing. And when it came out, everyone was like, "Where's the single player?"
Yeah,
I remember that being like a really big issue. Is people were like, "How come there's no single player?" And it's like, they told you this was multiplayer from the start. What do you? And so,
what can you expect from the public?
Yeah, no.
And I think it's one of those things where people just wanted single player as soon as they played it.
Oh yeah,
because it's a high skill ceiling. I mean, there was a lot to consider playing Titanfall multiplayer. Like, it wasn't a super easy multiplayer experience.
You got to weed out the weak.
You have all these different mechanics with the Titan. The Titans, and you had all your abilities, and you had
burning cards,
and you had skill-based movement, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't just running around and turning corners. You could parkour all over the place. So there was a skill ceiling to it, which I think probably. So I understood people back then if they were disappointed because they're not a fan of multiplayer only games. I also agree with you though, because that thing certainly does exist. You know, it's like PlayStation. Hey, this is what we're going to show during our PlayStation Now or whatever. This? Yeah. And then 5 minutes after, why didn't you show this? It's like, okay, what do you want from us? We told you what. So that sort of thing exists.
Oh yeah,
that's gaming, unfortunately. Yeah,
that's gaming. TM.
Yeah. Right. What? Sorry, you guys go ahead because I could talk a little bit more about this because I find it interesting for a few reasons. But
I don't have like a ton to say. I mean, if they don't have anything to say, or if they're not working on anything.
I mean, they did say another Titanfall game one way or another in the future. So
in the future, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's only been 2 years.
Yeah.
They've been working on Apex, and we had a pandemic happen. And so stuff was definitely put on hold. So, patience.
So I should have said that I think it was Andrew Wilson. It was one of the two, but I'm pretty sure it was Wilson that it was in an investor's call that said there was going to be a new Titanfall game by the end of 2019.
Oh,
now that. So what does that mean?
Means Andrew Wilson's a liar.
Yeah.
It means we don't know.
That's
but
right.
Also, you have to throw COVID in there, right?
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
maybe there was a Titanfall game in 2019. Maybe it got pushed back to February. And then if something got pushed back into Q1 2020, God knows what happened with it.
To forever.
But in the meantime of that happening, since that call, Apex Legend has very quickly become one of the biggest.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, it's quickly, I think, right behind Warzone and Fortnite. And so they're occupied with that. On top of that, I'm sure that after the success, because that was probably before Fallen Order came out.
Yep, you are correct.
After the success Fallen Order, fast track sequel, get that going. Because as far as I'm aware, that game is still talked about frequently, especially with a lot of other Star Wars stuff happening right now. But I just simply think they're not working on anything. And this isn't like, I guess this is kind of a jab at Jason Garza, but he is the community manager. He's not making the games.
Sure.
He gets told what to tell these people. I'm sure that in every developer, we know there are cliques, and I'm sure there's like the guys developing stuff will tell you what you need to know whenever you need to know it. You're like, we're not going to tell you what we're working on because you don't need to know. Like, you just, deal with Twitter and deal with Instagram.
He gets his information package like, hey, this is what we're able to talk about. This is stuff that's in the works that you can't talk about. don't talk about this thing.
But also, I mean, he just says we don't have anything in the works. I mean, he doesn't say it's never coming out.
Just
we don't have anything
currently,
in the works.
as it stands, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I do wish, I do prefer his statement over the wishy-washy.
Yeah.
The core of our DNA.
Yeah. I always absolutely prefer a more direct, like, no.
Yeah.
And I prefer it more if you actually do have something coming, but you're still telling me no. And there's no evidence of it because it'll be a surprise by the end of the day.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree. And I wish develop, and I understand. Well, you know what? I guess I understand why publishers are so worried about keeping things close to their chest.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because they want their development teams to feel a sense of pride and accomplishment when they release their game, but I think it's more so to do with, I don't know, you've got investor concerns to worry about when you're releasing certain games in certain quarters, and you don't want to make promises that you can't keep, or make, or get consumer expectations to a point where you don't want to keep them, but you want them at arm's reach. You don't want them too far away. So I think that's sort of maybe what they're trying to do, but I would prefer a just straight up no.
Yeah.
I think when developers are transparent, things are always better than when it's super PR fun. That's the tweet.
Yeah.
That bothers me.
Yeah.
I hate that.
And it also depends on how you handle it too, because I thought it was I got a great laugh when the Series X and the S were leaked, and all those things, the pictures and the trailer were leaked, and Xbox just tweeted out the image of that puppet monkey, just kind of like,
yeah,
because it's like, oh, like, sorry, like, I guess it's out, you know?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, no, yeah, I'm with you. I absolutely would prefer a more concrete answer when it comes to these things. And I don't know, maybe if we were more like that, we wouldn't have a lot of the responses we get from very vague.
We'd still have that.
I know.
We'd still have gamers TM yelling at us.
I still have that stupid shred of hope for people.
That's gaming TM.
That's gaming TM.
Okay, I am really excited to talk about this because speaking of developers being honest and transparent, the Industria developer says, quote, "We can't deliver AAA and we don't want to," end quote. I love it. Industria by Bleak Mill Games is a really cool looking FPS that's set in an alternate history Berlin right around the fall of the Berlin Wall. If I remember correctly, I played the demo. Demo was awesome. And what was I going to mention? Oh, I guess that's all I was going to mention. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's more to the story. Sorry, I wanted to talk about the game for a second because the game is really neat. It's like science fiction. It's set during an alternate history's 80s, and it has something to do with the Berlin Wall. So you have a lot of interesting set pieces, East-West Germany and fall of the Soviet Union and a lot of stuff in the 80s and early 90s and whatnot. Anyway, it has to do with robots taking over the world. It looks really cool. Anyway, on Twitter.
That was a twist.
Yeah, I know. On Twitter, Bleak Mill co-founder Javid Junickel, I believe it's Junickel, said, quote, "I often get messages about pre-ordering 12-hour campaigns, multiplayer, and comparisons to AAA games. We can't deliver that," end quote. He went on to list, or at least Industria's main Twitter account went on to list what the game is, which is 4 hours long, $20, entirely single player, and was made by between 2 and 6 people at any given time. Speaking to PC Gamer, this is a bit of a long quote, but every sentence is important. June Nichols said, quote, "After a few years, we reached a point where Industria often looked like more high-quality 3D production than it was at its core. More and more people started to compare Industria with Battlefield, Atomic Heart, BioShock, or Call of Duty. While humbling to hear every time we heard that, we knew this honor and an actually positive thing could quickly become a problem, as we were never and will never be able to deliver the same quality throughout and size of these productions we were getting compared to. I'm sure all these wonderful people have visions, ideas, and inspirations that go beyond your cliche settings or sexualized characters. However, the framework of gigantic productions that base decisions off of the stock market often can't take a risk, even creative ones. We are not here to change the whole system, but we are here to be an alternative."
Rick, I like your next note discussion. All caps. Yes.
So, it's interesting that you mentioned the gamer expectation thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
When it's like, hey, I'm gonna make you this, and I give you this, and then it's like, what? You made this for me? It's like this. That's what I told you it was gonna be. You know?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that bothers me the most about games and game culture, I guess, is sort of that mentality of being disappointed in something when you knew exactly what was happening, you know?
Yes.
And especially considering that we just talked about how publishers are wishy-washy about statements and stuff like that, I think this is the way to handle things. It's just being open and transparent. One, because there is a market for this kind of game.
Yes, there is.
There is a bajillion% market for a 4-hour single-player story that's not going to be...
Yeah, absolutely. There's a big audience for that.
Yeah, and I think we've seen in recent years with games like Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice and stuff like that, that not only is there a market, but there's a big market, and these games get noticed. It's not like this is a niche thing. Oh, is this one of those 4-hour story games that no one plays? It's like, no, like there's a huge...
There are people salivating for a short single-player story.
Yeah.
Not a 70-hour essay on the American West.
Sure. And it's interesting that he lists Battlefield and especially Atomic Heart. Because Atomic Heart is an example of a game that nobody has played yet. But people are comparing their excitement for a game that hasn't come out yet to their, and it's fine to be excited for a game. But it's another thing to have those expectations all of a sudden like imprint onto another game that you yourself invented, you know?
Yeah.
So I really, even though I've never made a game, I really empathize with this because I think we've seen enough of this sort of attitude. And I think it can really, and what they said about at the beginning, more like a more high quality 3D game, and that we can do all this stuff, managing expectations, but also managing realistic expectations about what you can make yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because how many times do we hear a game developer go, oh, well, we decided to add all these 10 things. We had to scrap 8 of them because, those 8 were unfeasible. And here it's like, we're not going to put the cart before the horse. We know exactly what we want. So I love everything about this story. That's why I'll stop talking.
Okay.
Industria, I'm looking at, Industria looks great.
Yes.
Like this game, this game looks absolutely gorgeous for something that is apparently made by several people. And the concept is really rad. I love the Cold War era, 80s era, and Berlin Wall is a topic that doesn't get touched on much. But I think that it is very important with a lot of things, especially game development, to kind of know your limits and set your limits. We have way too many examples, especially within the last generation on PS4 and Xbox One, of games that have kind of, I guess I'll say, buckled into the pressure of kind of being more than what it should only focus on, if that makes sense. So something, I guess I keep thinking about No Man's Sky.
Sure.
Like No Man's Sky, I'm sure was set out to be this particular thing, but the hype blew its balloon.
Yeah. It was partially self-inflicted.
And so, Hello Games?
Yep.
The Hello Games, oh, we could probably add this. Let's add this. Let's add, and they kind of dug their own hole. But already, Jung Nickel is like, look, this is it. This is all we want to make. As long as we tell a good story and leave it what we want it to be, then success will find its way to us. And we need more games like this, I think. I love indie titles and I love smaller games, and I think there's room for both the AAA titles. There's things I'm very excited for. I'm excited for the next Ghost of Tsushima. I'm excited for, AAA games. But I think more often than not, people need to look at AA games or even independent games like this and take them seriously as well and understand what they are in order to enjoy them.
And some of these games have told to this day, The Outer Wilds is still one of the best stories I've ever experienced in a game. Mm-hmm. Like The Outer Wilds story is just as good as like it takes points of reference from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Mm-hmm. And the story, the implications about consciousness and causality and humanity's place in the universe and all stuff like that is all packed into Outer Wilds. And Outer Wilds is if you know what to do, you can complete it in like 4 hours, 3 hours, And the entire game is there when you start, because it's just a solar system. So these types of experiences, I think, because it's easier to get your game out there. It's not easy. It's easier, though, right, than I think it was 15 years ago, where you had to box it and get it to a store somewhere.
Yes.
Now it's like Steam.
Xbox Live's ridiculous arcade limit. Like they're like 100 megabytes only. It has to be under this.
Yeah, but nowadays it's like you can, Steam, GOG, you have itch.io, all kinds of stuff on itch.io, right? I wanted to mention there's a game called Cloud Climber by 2-Star Games on Steam. It's free. It's a 15-minute story, right? Okay. And I won't say what it's about. It's a brilliant 15 minutes of story, right? That goes through a lot of different emotions, and it's really interesting. And it's free, right? So I downloaded it. I played it. Quick 15 minutes. I was like, at the end, I was like, wow, what a cool story. What an interesting little world. Mm-hmm. I feel so enriched after this 15 minutes. Yeah. I shouldn't have done this. I did it to myself.
I went to the comments.
I went to the Steam reviews. There was a thumbs down. This game's too short. Son of a bitch. Like, what do you
That's gaming.
Do we need to put ravens that you can throw an axe to in Cloud Climber? Not that that's wrong. Some people enjoy that, and Santa Monica Studio has time for it. But god damn it, like, I don't know. I can't imagine how frustrating it must be to pour part of yourself into a little tiny creation and never have the plan for it to be a gigantic production. Release it for free. You're taking a hit because it costs $100 to put something up on Steam. Mm-hmm. And then some YouTube commenter is too short. Like, son of a bitch. Anyway, sorry. I just, it made me think of that. I'm really passionate about this because I think this is a problem that exists. Hype culture and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And when devs are transparent and open about it, I feel like it's a good service that bats that stuff back, which I think needs to happen more often. Now I'm done.
Okay.
Gamers TM need to be put in their place.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Gamers, they're the worst.
Okay, well, we got to calm down before we get brigaded. Overwatch Executive Producer has left Blizzard. As first reported by Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, Chaco Sani told staff he was leaving on Friday. There's no official word why Sani was leaving, but several Blizzard employees told Bloomberg that Sonny was well respected and not involved with the allegations of toxicity at Blizzard. They also said Sonny was viewed as a stabilizing force after Jeff Kaplan left earlier this year. So there's a lot going on at Blizzard, and there was just an update to the lawsuit earlier today. I didn't. I missed that. Yeah, it wasn't huge. I don't remember what it was specifically, but it's just more stuff. And I'll tell you this about Blizzard. After Ubisoft dropped, it was just like, well, I guess there were lawsuits in France, but Ubisoft dropped, and it was a lot of video game press, video game criticism, right? Stuff like that. Blizzard dropped, and it started with the state of California, and then they got sued. They got sued by another department in the government somewhere. It may have been the federal government.
It was SEC.
SEC, yeah.
Oh, right. No, yeah, it was the Securities and Exchange Commission. And then today, and they subpoenaed them. And then today, something else happened with a different department, right?
Oh.
And I don't remember it off the top of my head. But the difference being is like one company, Ubisoft, not gets away with it, but definitely didn't have the reaction in the United States that Blizzard has.
Yeah.
And Blizzard is an American company.
I was about to say it's an American company versus a French company.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know the full
I did
news
see
coverage.
I didn't look
France.
into it.
Do you happen to see the department's name?
U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity, an ad is in the way. Commission.
There we go. Okay, cool. this weekend I watched it was one of the trailers for one of the classes in Diablo 4.
Okay.
And man, Diablo 4 looks good, but Blizzard has so much writing on Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4. And they've had a lot of people leave.
Yeah.
And I really feel bad for some of the developers that have been there a while. Because, you know, if you're somebody who isn't senior, but is like sort of up there, and then Kaplan leaves and you have a bunch of people leave, because they got in trouble, and all of a sudden you're closer to a senior position and you don't think you're ready for it or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that must suck. That must suck so bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't imagine it's it's hard enough for me to train someone new like at work, but so if Jeff Kaplan, who like, I'm not saying that no one else who's working at Blizzard for Overwatch, like making Overwatch, I'm not saying none of them don't know how to continue or don't know what's going on, but when your head leaves, how much information what that person has going on, how much of that is passed to the next person, and then from that, how much is passed to the next person? Because now that's what the top two guys who have left.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure of the structure, but it's two high-ranking people,
right?
Yeah.
So
extremely high-ranking.
It does bring worry to the further development of the game, and if anyone who will now take their place knows exactly how to continue moving forward, because that could cause a lot of issues. Mm-hmm. I'm not a developer, but I just, from the experience of losing people and gaining new people, like it. I
don't think you have to have experience in game development to know that if you get a new boss, it's like
sure.
You know, there's that scene in The Office where with Will Ferrell, and Will Ferrell wants Erin to say her name. Hello, this is Erin with Dunder Mifflin, but Michael says no, just say this is Dunder Mifflin. So it's like this new boss wants this little. So imagine a million tiny things like that because these people leave and there's a new boss and you're in the middle of making Diablo 4 and it's like, well, the memo needs to go in this basket on Tuesday instead of this basket on Monday. You know, just little tiny things. You know,
right? And that's what I'm getting at. Like, how is this new person going to create the game going forward? I guess.
I had and the other thought I think that goes along with this. Do you remember the story a couple months ago about all the people leaving different studios, like, you know, Riot and stuff?
Yeah.
And they're going and they're finding investment money and starting like independent studios all over the place.
Yeah. I do remember that story.
I feel like I don't know if between Riot and Blizzard, and then obviously Ubisoft isn't in Southern California. I mean, I don't think they have an office in Southern California anywhere, any kind of development. Ubisoft?
No, they're in San Francisco.
Oh, are they in San Francisco? Do they have
is
Ubisoft San Francisco? Is that like a big deal?
I think so.
Am I just completely missing?
The Canadian offices are the big deal. Okay. Those are big deal.
Well, anyway, you have these three studios that in the past 3 or 4 years have gotten really bad stories about their workplace culture. And people are seeing an alternative and looking for investment other places, working for themselves, whatever. It sort of brought that to my mind because it feels like we've just mentioned a lot of stories like this. And then there was that story, which was just an encapsulation of the entire thing. And it would be it would be tricky to talk to people who were in the middle of working on Diablo 4, but it would be fascinating to take the pulse of these people and be like, hey, you know, if you got the opportunity to leave Blizzard and go
do your own
somewhere
thing
else, how interested would you be in that? Even with Blizzard being as secure as it is and all that kind of stuff, it's like, what are your thoughts on that? And getting honest answers would be fascinating. And that may be an aspect of the whole Blizzard thing that we don't think about often enough. Is it driving people away from the AAA industry? My guess is it's not doing it so much that it's worrying Bobby Kotick or anything like that.
But it is, at this point in time, it's so easy to be an independent developer now. and lucrative. And I think a lot of that is thanks to streaming, but yeah, you could be on the money. Like these folks are probably just leaving the AAA life to follow their actual dreams.
Yeah. And if I'm an artist and I read the industry developer who's like, this is what we're making, so shut the hell up. Yeah. I'm like, man, that life.
Wait, we can do that? We can do that?
That life seems great, right? I don't have to worry about saving Blizzard with Overwatch 2 or something like that.
Yeah.
Are you ready for tidbits?
Tidbits, yes.
Yay! A man discusses the news, but not like the big news, the little news. Little bit. This is the tidbits.
Hello, Newsweek, am I right?
Yes.
Last of Us 2 multiplayer is currently being worked on. Got a quote from the blog post from Naughty Dog. States, in short, we're working on it. We see the community comments as many of you clamor for multiplayer and want updates. For now, we'll say that we love what the team is developing and want to give them the time to build out their ambitious project. We'll reveal more when it is ready. This information came from a blog post yesterday celebrating the Last of Us Day. They have a day dedicated to Last of Us stuff. Along with this announcement, they showed off the first image of Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey as Joel and Ellie for the live-action HBO series. That's it for that news. Not the tidbits, but just that news.
I think that's going to be interesting because Pedro Pascal will be playing two characters that have sort of a fatherly role.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is a bounty hunter, another is a survivor. But the survivor is the murderous villain who we really don't know, the bounty hunter is the teddy bear on the inside guy.
Yes.
I think that's a really interesting dynamic there.
He can do it all.
Yeah.
You can't keep getting away with it. This is my favorite tidbit, and I'm going to nerd out a little bit, but ACA Hamster, which is a developer for old arcade games and plenty of other re-releases, has re-released Xevious, an old arcade title with a very neat filter. And as we're growing up in the 90s, arcades were largely prevalent, and especially the 80s. And so games would have an attract mode is what they call it. So they would have like a demo mode, and it would show you how the game plays and whatnot. And usually along with this stuff, you would have, while the game was playing, the logo of the game as it was showing off the gameplay. Eventually, depending on how long those arcade machines were on, that logo for a lot of games would be burned into the screen, because that's just how it was. Well, the Xevious release has a filter that you can change on to imprint that into your game. So they kind of, they have a lot of filters when they release these games. They released Pac-Man. They recently released Pac-Man, but they've released all these old arcade shooters. Donkey Kong they've done. They release like 3 to 5 of them a week. They really knock them out. A lot of obscure titles as well. But it's really cool to see you can check out the photo on Twitter. I don't know why I said that, because I have no way of telling people where to go to go find that. Just put ACA Hamster in Twitter Xevious, and you'll find it.
Or something.
Maybe. Yeah. But yeah, you'll see the photo that they put up, and you see the outline of the logo just right there, and you can just leave it on if you want, because that's how you would play. It'd be burned into your gameplay. Sure. So it's wild. They also, like I mentioned, released a version of Pac-Man, the arcade version of Pac-Man. And this one is interesting because I had no idea about this. This one includes the alternate names for the ghosts. So in the original Pac-Man, the ghosts' names are Inky, Pinky, Blinky, and Clyde.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the filter changes their names to, I guess, a lesser-known version, which their names were Mackie, Mickey, Mucky, and Mocky. And I had no clue that those were their names at one point, apparently. And I just knew that. And then, so you can choose the filter to like change it to that as well. So yeah, no, very fun stuff. That's it. That's all for the tidbits. I'm sorry. I should have said that's all for tidbits. Slow news week.
It's fine. I love our stories about random. When I was a kid, I wanted an arcade machine so bad.
Still do.
And now, if I had an arcade machine, I'd probably be like how the fuck am I going to move this?
Oh yeah, it'd be an annoyance more than anything for sure.
Yeah, and it's like I've got a PC, whatever piece of shit's on this arcade machine, I could get on the internet somewhere.
Wow.
I'm kidding, but
whatever third-rate trash made in the 80s is on this piece of garbage.
I can get on the internet somewhere. Why the hell do I have an arcade machine? Okay,
it's that feel, man. That feel of old, or I don't know. I'd rather be at an arcade.
Did you
personally?
Have you ever beaten an arcade game? Did you ever play an arcade game long enough?
Yes.
In one sitting that you like got to the end and like completed everything?
He said yes.
Yes, but not with my like. It was on one of those like $10 free play days. So I mean, I don't want to say that's cheating, but it's like, if I were to actually do that, I'd probably run out of money before I beat the game. But since I had like a free play, I was able to beat it. It was Mega Man: The Power Battles. And it was a arcade only game where you chose Mega Man or one of his other partners, and you would just kind of do a boss rush with all of the like bosses, and there was a story mode to go with it, but it's forgettable. But and I'm sure I've beaten one of the like Turtles games or X-Men games, like, but you gotta, man, it takes forever and so much damn money.
I remember I beat the Rambo arcade game that had you have guns,
the light gun, yeah.
And I was playing, it was back in when I was like 15 or 16 years old, and it was at a place at a mall nearby that used to have a ton of arcade games. I don't remember if it's there anymore.
GameWorks, probably.
I think GameWorks.
Yeah.
And I went out with friends, and it was a friend of a friend that I played with. I didn't really know this person all that well, but I was like hanging out with him that day. And so my other friends went to do something, and I was with this person that I didn't know all that well. I was like, hey, you want to play something? Sure. So we hop onto this Rambo game. Apparently, this person was just incredible at this Rambo game, because we go through the whole thing, and there was one of the missions that was like you had to shoot down it because it went through all the Rambos, like the first Rambo and then Second Blood or whatever the hell it's called, Rambo saves Afghanistan or whatever, and you have to shoot down this Hind helicopter,
Yeah.
And it was really difficult because in the game you use a bow and arrow, and your bow has like an explosive arrow, it's explosive tipped arrow, so you only have one shot. So it was ridiculously hard because you're not supposed to get past this. But this person I was playing with just one shot at like nothing. It was insane.
So that's how Tyler met his wife.
No. Anyway, that's my story about Rambo and the arcade game. Did you bring it up?
No.
Yeah.
The original ending of Rambo 3.
Oh, yeah. Rambo's not exactly the greatest.
Dated.
Not exactly the greatest franchise of all time.
A bit.
Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse. Check out the videos, check out the thing, check out the 10K subs, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.